Is the Shroud of Turin a genuine relic of Jesus Christ, or a masterful forgery? For centuries, this question has captivated historians, scientists, and believers alike. Join us as we unravel the mysteries surrounding this iconic artifact, exploring the evidence and arguments that both support and refute its authenticity. The Shroud of Turin is one of the most studied and debated artifacts in human history. It's a linen cloth bearing the faint image of a man who appears to have suffered physical trauma consistent with crucifixion. Many believe this image is of Jesus Christ himself. For others, it's an impressive forgery, possibly created centuries after the time of Jesus. The cloth measures about 14 feet long and 3.5 feet wide. The image on the shroud shows the front and back of a man, as if he had been laid in the cloth and wrapped from head to toe. The markings suggest wounds on the wrists, feet, side, and head, similar to the injuries Jesus is said to have received during the crucifixion. Despite the many studies and opinions, the Shroud of Turin remains a mystery. Is it a miraculous relic, a medieval hoax, or something else entirely? This is the question we'll explore in this video. The first confirmed appearance of the shroud in historical records was in the 14th century, in Lirey, France. A knight named Geoffroy de Charny is said to have displayed it in a church around 1354. However, there are claims that the shroud existed well before that. Some researchers point to earlier references to cloths bearing Christ's image, such as the image of Edessa or the Dandelion, as possible mentions of the shroud in earlier centuries. These claims, however, are speculative and debated. The Catholic Church has never officially claimed that the shroud is the actual burial cloth of Jesus. Instead, it encourages devotion while leaving room for science and inquiry. Over time, the shroud was moved across Europe. It was housed in Chambéry, France, before being transferred to Turin, Italy, in 1578, where it remains today. Throughout its history, the shroud has inspired countless works of art, sermons, and religious devotion. It became a powerful symbol in both religious and artistic circles, often sparking emotional responses from those who viewed it. But its authenticity has always been under question. Are the historical records enough to prove it's genuine? Or do the gaps in the timeline leave too much room for doubt? In 1978, a group of scientists under the Shroud of Turin Research Project, STURP, was granted access to study the cloth. They conducted a series of non-destructive tests to analyze the image, fibers, and chemical composition. They concluded that the image was not painted, printed, or created by any known artistic method. It lacked brush strokes, pigments, or dyes. Instead, the image seemed to be a discoloration of the very surface of the linen fibers. This led some to believe it could have been formed through a burst of radiation or energy, possibly supporting a miraculous origin. However, in 1988, a major study was conducted using radiocarbon dating. 3 independent labs in Oxford, Zurich, and Arizona dated the shroud to between 1260 and 1390 AD. This seemed to confirm that the shroud was a medieval creation. Critics of the radiocarbon dating pointed out that the sample used might have been from a section of the cloth that had been repaired in the Middle Ages. Others suggested contamination from centuries of handling, exposure to fire, and environmental factors could have skewed the results. Further scientific examinations included pollen analysis, image enhancement, and 3D imaging. Some pollen grains found on the shroud came from plants native to the Middle East, possibly indicating an origin in that region. The image also contains anatomical details that some claim would have been unknown to medieval artists. Still, skeptics argue that none of this proves the image is of Jesus. They suggest that a clever artist could have created a realistic image using substances that have since degraded. Moreover, the supposed bloodstains have been analyzed, and while they test positive for hemoglobin, critics argue that their color and pattern do not behave like real blood after centuries of aging. So, what are we left with? A scientific puzzle with no clear answer. The image defies easy explanation, and both believers and skeptics use the same data to support different conclusions. Let's look at the arguments supporting the authenticity of the shroud. The anatomical accuracy. Supporters argue that the image shows incredible detail in human anatomy, including muscle structure, proportions, and wounds that match historical accounts of Roman crucifixion. The lack of artistic tools. The absence of pigments, brush marks, or any known artistic technique strengthens the claim that the image wasn't manually created. The Middle Eastern pollen and historical mentions. The presence of pollen from Jerusalem and the speculation that earlier references might be to the shroud support an ancient origin. Mysterious image formation. No modern scientist has been able to replicate the image in the same way. Some suggest it was created by a burst of energy, like at the moment of resurrection. On the other hand, skeptics raise strong counterpoints. Carbon dating results. The 1988 test clearly dated the shroud to the Middle Ages, a time when relics were often faked to attract pilgrims. Historical gaps. There is no confirmed mention of the shroud before the 14th century. This gap in the timeline weakens claims of ancient origins. Potential artistic techniques. Some suggest that the image could have been created using medieval technology, like bas-relief or early photographic techniques. Blood evidence issues. Some forensic experts argue that the blood stains are too clean and neat to be realistic, suggesting artistic manipulation. The debate is far from settled. New techniques, like advanced spectroscopy and image analysis, may one day provide clearer answers. But for now, each side presents compelling evidence, and neither has been able to completely convince the other. The Shroud of Turin continues to be one of the most fascinating and mysterious artifacts in history. Whether it's the genuine burial cloth of Jesus Christ or an elaborate medieval creation, its story captivates people from all walks of life. We've explored its mysterious image, the deep history that surrounds it, the scientific studies that have tried to explain it, and the passionate debate it has inspired. Despite centuries of research, one thing remains clear: the shroud's true nature is still unknown. It stands at the intersection of faith, science, and history, a powerful reminder of the limits of human knowledge and the enduring power of belief. So what do you think? Is the Shroud of Turin a holy relic, a clever hoax, or something else entirely? Let us know in the comments below. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more deep dives into history's greatest mysteries. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay curious.